Cheryl. You bring snacks, they got snacks today.
Okay. The sooner we start, the sooner we'll finish. First item, approval of the agenda.
I make a motion we approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, community and economic development. Joe?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Just a brief overview before we get into the individual topics. So tonight is your first budget work session. The intention behind the budget work sessions are to give you greater detail on topic areas. For tonight, those topic areas are going to focus on community and economic development, stormwater infrastructure, and then we'll go review with you the changes that have been proposed in your fee schedule. This is also an opportunity for the public to participate and offer any input on the budget, on things that they see that they like or see that they don't like, or things that they don't see that they want to have included. This also is an opportunity for you to ask questions, obviously related to the topic areas, but questions that if we can't answer tonight, that we can come back and have an answer for you at work session number 2. Before we get started, I wanted to highlight something. For all the work that we'll do, these 3 pages, or these 5 pages back to back, is all you're going to be voting on when it comes time to make a vote. It's the budget ordinance. Bobby was particularly concerned because he found an error in here, so he wanted to get an update to you. The fact of the matter is that whatever ordinance or form of ordinance gets adopted is the one that you all create. So just use this as a base plate. So with that, I will recognize Michael Clark to start our conversation on community and economic development.
Okay. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. The first of the items tonight is community and economic development. We operate this within the town of Zebulon as a committee due to not having a full-time staff person, as well as be able to partner with other entities such as the Chamber of Commerce. This committee this year did include myself, Sheila Long, our Parks and Recreation Director, as well as Chris Ray, our Public Works Director. Tonight, we're going to talk first about the priorities and several things that we're recommending to be funded, as well as a couple things that that we initially thought could be considered within the funding request, but will be brought forward before you in future years. But everything we looked at, we really boil it down to kind of the principles and the priorities of what we wanted to do as a committee. First and foremost, this was focusing on downtown. As you've heard me say, that the downtown is the heart and soul of the community, and more so as a community's image is fundamental to its economic well-being. So we need to make sure that we get the downtown right. Second is having the ability to attract private investments and job opportunities. We can do these through different grants and cooperative partnerships. We'll go into those details specifically with our facade improvement grant, streetscape grant, as well as a couple others. Finally, maintaining that small town charm by the establishment of public gathering spaces. One of the things that a lot of people think about when they vision small town is groups of folks gathering and essentially establishing a community. Living individually, that doesn't create a community. But activities such as the tree lighting and having places to gather really create that foundation in which we need to establish to help promote that small town charm. And as with everything that you're going to see tonight, it is foundational on the three pillars of the 2030 strategic plan, which are vibrant downtown, small town life, as well as growing smart. Each of the different budget items coming before you tonight, you'll see a little icon, and they will represent each of these different areas moving forward. As an overview, we did request funding for alley activation, specifically the next portions of it. Downtown tree lighting. This is not the Christmas tree lighting, but the individual lights. I just realized I forgot the lights on my desk. Thank you, Joe. We have handouts for everybody tonight as well. Streetscape grant, the building upfit grant, which I'll go into detail about that, the facade improvement grant, cooperative partnerships with the Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitors Bureau, wayfinding signage, and finally I'm going to wrap up with details of our progress with the Downtown Associate Community Program. First and foremost is alley activation. We've already had tremendous success with this, with the phase one, if you will, of this process. We realized that we have the potential to have a great alley network in downtown that's going to create pedestrian connections, not only in this particular location, but throughout the entirety of downtown. We've already seen results of positive comments and people recognizing that as a visual representation of the revitalization of not only downtown, but as the town of Zebulon as a whole. Sheila has received comments from somebody who moved away as a young person, and they're going to be coming back because they see how we have been transforming into downtown. Things like this create that visual representation to make that vision a reality. So what we're looking to do is expand into phase two, but keep in mind this is part of a much bigger idea as well. These are actually all platted alleyways within our downtown, and you can see they expand quite a distance, potentially even connecting up to Community Park. But for this particular funding, we're going to be looking to do phase two. Phase two is the area behind the existing alley activation space, running perpendicular to that up to Vance Street. It would include closing vehicular access for a regular basis from that street, but allowing it for selected users during particular times. But it will essentially be a continuation in terms of look and feel of what we've already done. We'd be requesting $94,000 for this item.
Are you going to explain what exactly, are you going to break that out at all?
We can in terms of details.
Could you just give me a rough overview real quick? And I guess I don't understand, are you saying that now the alley is going to be closed to vehicular traffic except sometimes for certain events vehicles are going to be allowed on it, but otherwise no?
So it'll be closed to through traffic. When the proposal is at Vance Street where the alley intersects with Vance Street, that it will be closed at that point. We will add additional parking spaces where right now you have the opening for the road. And so a local traffic will work it out so that local traffic can access the rear of their buildings, but it will be closed for just your through traffic, but it will be open for pedestrian traffic.
Okay.
So just, this project includes demolition of asphalt, concrete paving. It also includes curb, gutter, parking spaces. On our Rendell, we have included some hard surface accents, so like bringing the brick accents that we have in our streetscape on Arundel. We'll be bringing that into this project as well. We've included planters, seating, and trash cans.
Okay.
A further breakdown of this, if you want to look at the numbers, is on page F-127.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The next item is actually what everybody received their handouts for. It's to replace the lights that are currently located on the individual trees through downtown. Currently, we do use these incandescent style lights, which is the clear one that was handed out to you. The proposal is to switch to an LED light, which is the one that has a little texture contents to it. As you can tell, the materials of them are substantially different. The LED is actually a much more stable, durable product compared to the glass incandescent lights. Right now, the lights that we have down there, it's not only the light bulbs that have to be replaced out once they break, but the wires are starting to decay and erode over time. They've been down there for quite some time, and the LED lights will also provide a cost savings. It costs a little bit more on the front end, but has the potential for the electricity that's being used to actually be up year-round while still being able to use less electricity than the existing lights that we have right now.
Are these going to be solely white, or are we going to have the option to change them if we, say, have an event and we want to have blue lights?
As of right now, the intent was to have them all be white. I imagine that there's different colors available, so we could swap them out if necessary. But the budget request was specifically for the continuing with the white lights.
Okay.
The next is proposed continuation of the facade improvement grant with an enhancement. The facade improvement grant has been actually becoming increasingly popular over the past couple of years as business owners and building owners have become aware of it. This past year, we've actually maxed out the funding that was allocated in last year and had to do some transfers to accommodate additional buildings that required funding. But that funding can only go so far. Currently, the way that the funds are structured is it's a 50-50 match up to $2,500. Many of these buildings, the cost to paint the building alone far exceeds that of value amount. So we're proposing to expand this and possibly increase the amount to $5,000 per application with a $20,000 request, which will allow us to fund 4 projects per fiscal year. It does, the continuation from the existing structure would remain where those funds would be provided upon occupancy of the building as opposed to just completion of the project. The next one would be a new grant opportunity, specifically the Building Upfit Grant, or otherwise known in some other municipalities as a BUG grant. This would be a 50% match up to $10,000. It would be specific to buildings within the downtown overlay district. And this would be structured similar to how we have the existing economic development incentives, where it would be based on the increased taxable value of the parcel. We'd be looking to request for $30,000 for this grant. And it's worth knowing, part of the rationale behind this grant is it is very expensive to renovate some of these buildings. And until you get into these structures, you really don't know how much work that needs to be done. As an example, the building that's included in the picture here, that's downtown. That's our downtown. That first floor is Cat Banjo. This is the site that architect Michael Germano is looking into moving into. When he purchased the building and started opening up walls, he realized that they needed to take substantial efforts just to stabilize the building. These funds would be specific for those type of improvements that could not be transferable to another building, but are essential to maintain our existing building stock within downtown.
What are the requirements going to be in order to qualify for said grant?
We're going to be structuring it similar to how we have the economic development program, but we have not gotten into those details as of yet. We're waiting to make sure that we have the available funding before we expend staff effort and time to construct the program details.
I'm not against helping people in this fashion, but Joe knows I'm going to bring this up. I was trained at the School of Government that we couldn't directly put money inside these buildings. We could do facade grants, but once you went through the front door, it needed to be funneled through another nonprofit or whatever the case may be. Is that still the case?
No. And there are several municipalities within Wake County that have successfully implemented this grant, including the city of Raleigh.
So the rules changed?
The rules, there's been opinions from specifically Tyler Mulligan from the School of Government.
Tyler's the one that was training.
However, there's several others that have indicated that there is state statute requirement, not only in 160D, but several others that authorize these type of activities and projects.
Okay. Yeah. Well, again, Tyler Mulligan was the one that was teaching the course, and he was very adamant.
Yeah, he's also against facade improvement grants as an example as well.
Okay, well, I just want to be concerned that we're not sliding off the track.
Are these grants coinciding with our Main Street program?
It could be absolutely a component of it. We talked to the folks from the Rural Center that we're working with through the Main Street program, and they referenced several other municipalities that have something like this in various degrees within their municipality, and it is oftentimes rolled in as part of the package of the North Carolina Main Street program. The next one is a continuation of an existing grant, which is the Downtown Streetscape Grant. Once again, this is isolated to properties within the downtown overlay district. We're looking to expand this, though, where right now it's a 50% match up to $4,000. We're looking to increase the total amount to $10,000. Additionally, in the past, it's been specific only for 501c3 not-for-profit organizations. However, we're seeing an increased interest in business owners wanting to do things to improve the streetscape in front of their buildings. These can be things such as planters, furniture, and other items that really enhance the pedestrian experience as one's walking through our downtown. The next one is the wayfinding signage. As you are aware, we're doing part of a full rebranding process, and this is the logical next step moving forward with that. These signs would be located not only in our entry locations off of the freeways, but also as a wayfinding opportunity in a smaller context in downtown. These can be including directions for the different activities, the parks, the community center, where parking is located. All of those would fall under this umbrella of wayfinding signage. Overall, we are requesting funding to put up 6 signs, and we're requesting $40,000.
Why are they so expensive? And before you even answer that, we don't even have an updated logo or an idea of the direction of our branding. So how is that going to, I mean, if you look at the pictures that you've provided, they are all markedly different. And I feel like, how are we going to incorporate our brand and our logo if we don't have a brand or a logo yet?
Well, there's certain items that we can do right now that we can incorporate our brand and logo onto those signs later on. However, the branding process, I believe Joe's coming up to expand on that a little bit more. That we're in the beginning stages of that with selecting a consultant, and we don't want time to escape away once we do establish our local. Oh, never mind, because realistically, time is of the essence. Having the ability to work with that consultant to make sure that these signs are designed to correspond directly with our logos as part of this process is essential to making sure that the design, the characteristic, the shape, form of these signs corresponds with the image that we want to portray. In terms of the cost per sign, that is typical of what the other communities, specifically Greenville, Wendell, Knightdale, that's essentially what they spend for their signs, because you have to take in consideration not only the construction of the sign, but also the installation, having to put footings in, making sure that it's stable, that it tolerates the applicable wind loads, those type of things.
Thanks.
The next one is the Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitors Bureau Partnership. This one is really about maintaining the connection to the rest of Wake County. For many years, we've been kind of out here on the fringes of Wake County, and we're now getting a greater appearance within the whole regional context, especially as housing and development moves out here. But this is looking to continue that process, especially through the people first tourism. This is going to be things such as having somebody sign up and come down and spend a day with Brandon at Old Raleigh Distillery, or possibly spend an afternoon with Shannon learning how beekeeping works in North Carolina, possibly spending an afternoon with John over at Zebulon Pottery, or maybe working with a local fishing guide to experience, well, what might be awesome fishing over on Little River. Well, my former staff member says otherwise, but I think it has potential anyways. But we're looking to continue this partnership, which would be $7,000, which not only includes marketing in the magazine that comes out on an annual basis, but really maintaining that connectivity to the Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitors Bureau. Finally is the Downtown Associate Community Program. This is year 2 of 4 that we're going into this. The focus is on their 4-point pillar, or their 4 points, which is economic vitality, design, promotion, and organization. We've really lucked out in our consultant with Teresa Piner. She has really taken this on as a passion of hers, working with the business owners and the staff from the North Carolina Main Street program to really engage the community. And we've already heard feedback from them that we're moving much faster than they anticipated us being able to move, especially with COVID. She did not let that slow anybody down. So we're looking to continue this program with $36,000, and that's a combination of operations as well as training. Those training events are not only isolated to staff, but also opening up to working with appointed board for the Downtown Associate Community Program to make sure that they understand how to implement those 4 points. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sheila Long. She has some items regarding some continuation of funding.
Good evening again. I just wanted to provide an update. The last time I spoke before you about alley activation, it was asked kind of when you would know what funds remained in that project line. And so we have worked to solidify how we can move forward with the alley activation on the western side of Arundel Avenue on the 100th block. And our electrical work is also, we're in the process of moving that along. And because we're combining these 2 projects, we've had some savings in the electrical work. We also did not have to get engineered designs involved. And so we've been able to have some savings. So we're looking at just under $12,000 that remains in that budget, as long as we don't hit any hiccups, unexpected hiccups. One of the things that we would like to do with that funding is install Wi-Fi infrastructure downtown in that alleyway. And we have been working with IT in order to create a network that will be able to expand. So what we would install is something that we could continue as we grow our downtown and as we grow our infrastructure. So public Wi-Fi is becoming very commonplace in public spaces such as parks and downtown areas. And this also would support different events that we have in our downtown area. We're already hearing from some of our business owners that they have an interest now that the alleyway is open and available, that they want to go work outside, but there's no internet connectivity there. So we're already hearing that, and so I think as we continue to grow, you'll continue to hear that. And I think also the residential capacity around our downtown could absolutely benefit from that public Wi-Fi opportunity. So we anticipate requesting to roll over funds. Any feedback you have on such a project, but we're looking to utilize some of those remaining funds to do a project like that.
So when you speak about the electrical work, we've got the electrical boxes out there. Are they going to have 220 or just 110? Because a lot of these food trucks that we have coming downtown require 220. And giving them the opportunity, even if they are required to pay the town a $30 fee, they'll be saving on the fuel. They won't have to lug that equipment, and it will smell better downtown, and there won't be as much noise pollution.
Absolutely. So the current electrical grid, I know it's been a while since we originally presented that. So on Horton Street, what we've put there as part of this alley network included 50 amp access, which is what a food truck would need to utilize. It would also be enough for us to support a band. And we've also are going to have at the back of the alley, if you're looking like where Creative Cup, the back of Creative Cup will be, we will have 50 amp access. We should have 50 amp access there. We'll have several just regular outlets along the alley, and we're also going to have a 50 amp at the front, close to our rental. And we are, part of this Wi-Fi project includes increasing the electrical, so not to get so technical, but the way the grid currently is downtown, one of the reasons that we wanted to be able to increase our electrical infrastructure is we are limited, especially during your holiday season, on how much more electricity we can pull once those lights are installed. And so once we create this additional electrical infrastructure and give some, we'll be able to support additional load. And so when we install this infrastructure for the Wi-Fi, it includes additional electrical work that will add a 50 amp near the where the butterfly is in the alley. So we'll have a 50 amp access there in addition.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But Brandon's running trucks like nonstop. And some of these other, which is fantastic. I was downtown this past weekend, and it was magical. People were meandering about, and it was lovely. And I want to keep it lovely without the loud, intrusive presence of food trucks running their generators. And so I would like to see more than just, I think that you said 4 or 50 amp. If we can work it that way, if we can take some of the savings from whatever was left over with another project, I think that that's super important for us right now because it really does, it brings excitement, but it also keeps a small town feel so that you don't feel like you're walking through some enormous festival in downtown Raleigh and you can't even talk to each other because of the noise from the food trucks.
Right. So I think you're absolutely right. And those are conversations that, as we understand, as businesses come in and as they shift around, our intent was to focus on one block at a time, just from a available funding perspective. And so we were focusing on the 100 block, and then our next step would be to focus on the 200 block and our alley and electrical infrastructure. And so I agree with you that as we have these businesses that are coming in and we're looking at expanding the walkability of our community and having that atmosphere that you talked about, that yes, having that support, that infrastructure is going to be important. And so I'm not as familiar with the electrical load of the 200 block. I think that there's more flexibility than there is on the 100 block, but I can't say that for sure. So as we move forward, I'm happy to look into that. And then whatever savings we have remaining, if there's enough to move forward with that, I think that's a great idea. And we would love to look into that.
I mean, I feel like some of these businesses would be receptive to a cost-sharing program where they help fund part of that project to make sure that they've got the service that they need out in front of their establishment. Mm-hmm. Or if there's a way to finagle part of that streetscape grant money into that electrical upfitting, is that a possibility, Mike?
Possibly. I don't have to.
Okay, all right.
I wish I had.
Okay. I feel pretty passionate about this after like getting a little taste of what our downtown could be like. And my husband actually finagled a sound block device for one of the trucks because it was so loud right in front of Neo. And it was a dampener, and it made it significantly more pleasant. Mm-hmm. But man, would it be nice to just be able to like have the benefit of a food truck without all of the smell and the noise.
Well, in a couple of weeks, we hope across from Neo that will be taken care of.
Right.
That doesn't fix the in front of Old Raleigh immediately, but I think that, I just have to find out what it can support and what the cost will be. Yeah. There may be that I still have enough in what's remaining of that 11,000. I just don't know until I have a chance to talk with the electrician.
Okay. Will you have the opportunity to circle back with us and
yeah.
Okay.
Great.
We
meet again next week and the week
and
after
that,
and then probably the week after that. So yes, okay. I will be happy to report as soon as I have that information.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I know that there are certain generators that you can buy that is less noisy and less, I guess, pollutant.
True, but are we going to?
I don't know if we would want to be restrictive to that. Or,
it wouldn't be a bad idea if the town were to own one of those, but as far as like having it as a loaner for food trucks, I think that maybe that might not work.
No, I was more or less talking about them having their own.
Well, I don't mind sharing. There are communities that do have restrictions on food trucks. So like if you're in the city of Raleigh, especially in like their downtown area, last I checked, they had those types. So food trucks that are serving continuously in that area have those types of generators. So you're right that is an option. I just don't know that that's something we want to do just yet.
Right.
That's something for y'all to talk about. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Do you have, and maybe it's just for Mike, a total of all of these? When I'm looking at the Community and Economic Development page in here, it doesn't include all of this. So I assume that some of this is over in CIP or somewhere else. But I personally would like to see, when you make a presentation like that, what the bottom line is for everything that you requested at this point. And again, I realize it's scattered through here, but digging through this thing is, well, I've been digging while you've been talking.
Well, this information is not going to be in your budget for next year. This was just, I'm following up because when I came to you for the transfer of funds, I was specifically asked when y'all would know. So I'm just giving you an update. This isn't a request.
I understand, but if you're talking about the $94,000 is not a request in this year's budget?
Oh, that is a request.
That's my point.
Okay.
The LED tree lighting is not on this page. So what I would just like to see is when you make a presentation like this, what's the bottom line when you get to the end of it?
What page are you on?
I'm on C-194 right now.
You said C?
C is in Charlie.
I believe you were in the operating budget. The request, so the recommended CIP, the project details are going to be under requested, and I believe that one is for the alley activation project. I had it marked in mine.
Now, I'm not looking for the individual, Sheila. What I'm looking for is when you go through something like this and you get to the end of what we're talking about,
Right.
economic development, that I have the numbers for everything you've just presented.
Okay.
I don't care how it's scattered through the budget.
So
It's in there,
it's,
Joe, and I just don't know where it is.
it's in section E,
E.
E. And I'll find the page,
All right, thank you.
page 8, E8.
All right.
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.
Where is it under E?
It's at the very top of the page that you're on.
I see, like, the alley activation.
Yes, ma'am.
So there it says 100,000, so that's different?
I would assume that when it just got put in the the amount that we requested was 94,000, so I would assume when the budget was prepared, it was rounded up to 100,000.
So what you've requested in your presentation is 300,000.
No, the alley activation, I believe
Well, I
is
know
90.
alley activation is a separate number. I'm talking about
The total,
total.
well, I didn't get the presentation, so I'll let you.
I guess, I don't know. Well, yeah, branding, wayfinding.
Yeah, have all of these been rounded up? Because wayfinding is 40,000, but in this budget, it's 50,000.
50,000. I need to understand why we're doing that.
I just want to understand what you're asking us, what kind of money you're asking for.
Okay. So the rounding up is because of me. When these requests come through, they either don't include some things that I think need to be included. So as an example, on the wayfinding did not include the number of signs that I felt as though needed to be included. So that's an example of where I will round up what has been requested. Another example, and this is just a reflection of my experience in construction, that I think the numbers for the type of project, either the magnitude of the project or the complexity of the project, I think the requested amount is too tight. And so the rounded up number is a reflection of what I think is a better reflection. Mayor, to get to your question on E8, the 300,000 is the total that has been requested.
Right.
So that's 10,000 for facade, 10,000 for streetscape, the 30,000 for building upfit, and then on and on. I could continue to read, but
Well, I can read them, I can see them in front of me, that's fine. That's what I was looking for and I couldn't find.
right. And then if you're interested in where the funding source is, continue to go down and you'll see where the funding source is. So 50,000 of that is coming from a portion of your sales tax. So we take 50,000, we dedicate that towards capital projects. And then the remainder is coming from your general fund balance.
Where are we looking at that then? You said down at the bottom.
It's on the left-hand side middle.
Okay, so if you are looking at the.
Okay, I
you
see
got
it,
Okay.
yeah. So if we circle back to wayfinding, you didn't think that enough signs were proposed, so it's not going to be 6 signs. How many signs is it going to be? 7? 8?
Well, what I was thinking is you were going to need a couple of signs at each interchange. So that's 3 interchanges, so that's 6. And then I felt as though you were going to be interested anyway in focusing on what I'll call boundary signs for your downtown district. So that is what I was proposing as your phase 1. Something at the interchange to get people oriented to the town and maybe start targeting them to downtown. That wouldn't be nearly enough for your wayfinding. That's why there's future wayfinding in there, but at least that will establish at the interchanges and focus on the downtown area where our energy is focused right now.
So what we're getting today is we're getting presentations where folks are saying, well, we've requested $30,000, but then when it comes to the budget, it's going to be like 50 or it could be 80. Why are they then coming and telling us that it's one number and then we're going to have to dig through it to find the real number? I'm confused.
Okay. So that is maybe in my effort to be transparent where I'm being confusing is when these department directors develop a budget, it's a requested budget and not everything gets recommended. The stuff that does get recommended, some of the things that I do recommend are exactly what they have requested. Some of the things are rounded up for the reasons that I mentioned. To get to your question as what is the distinction is they are explaining to you the concept. They're not necessarily getting into the magnitude of the project, and that's why we have these discussions.
Okay.
Joe, I really think that we should be seeing what you expect the real numbers to be, and I know that's what you put here, but in this presentation it was not, and I think we need consistency.
I agree.
Okay.
Especially if folks are tuning in, because they might not have this information
Right.
in front of them.
Any other questions from anything? Okay. Thank you.
Then there was a couple, to continue on, there was a couple items that we did request initially that we realized really should be put into future budgets as opposed to this one. First and foremost is downtown sidewalk repair. Our sidewalk revitalization efforts really started in 1998, and a lot of the infrastructure that you see down there right now is work that was done in 1998. As we all know, over time, the foundations, the details, the binding material that holds a lot of these bricks together, they decay and erode over time. Additionally, the bricks themselves need constant maintenance in terms of cleaning. So the proposal would be to repair, reset sections of the downtown brickwork, repair loose areas of lifted bricks. This will maintain the ADA compliance of our downtown to make sure that those with disabilities are able to travel across our sidewalks in a safe and efficient manner. Furthermore, it helps to clean up the grime and the moss and the mold that builds up onto these structures, allowing them to have a new image. One of the reasons that we're not looking forward to move through, with this year is one of the items with our North Carolina Main Street program includes downtown design. And part of that is we want to make sure that we get public input of, hey, do we want to continue with the existing design in terms of the sidewalks and everything that we have in place now, or do we want to change it up? If we do want to continue with it, there'd be a $75,000 request for that.
And that's not in this budget.
That's correct. That's not in this budget. This would be in for future years. The next one is the downtown master plan. A logical next step as we continue with our planning efforts. As everybody's aware, we're wrapping up our comprehensive land use plan, which is a very broad, town-wide focus on on the future land uses, the activities, and how everything is connected. This would prepare an area-specific plan for a downtown area. Once again, this would correlate with the efforts through the North Carolina Main Street program, but also be a continuation of the downtown discussions or the downtown conversation events that we had last fall. All of those details would roll into a downtown plan. We've contacted a couple folks, really looked at what those plans could entail. We also looked at some of the plans that have been recently created, such as the town of Apex, on what the content and character is of those. So with that, we'd be requesting $80,000. Once again, not in this year's budget, but something that's likely to come before you in the future. And with that, it concludes our presentation from the Community Development, or the Economic and Development Committee, and we're available if you have any other questions.
I do have one. Wait a minute, let me be sure I'm saying something. The facade grant says there's 20,000 requested, but on the budget page, it's only showing 10.
That's correct. Initially, we requested, go back to that, an expansion of this in light of the number of businesses that showed interest this past year. But because of budget constraints, we realized, okay, that level of funding would not be able to be achieved this year. And I see Joe getting up, so it looks like he has something.
I understand that. It's just you've got to root it out to get it. You know, that's what bothers me a little bit.
Okay.
So again, that's another part when I get all these requests and I have to balance. There's some things that I'm cutting in, and I think the solution to that is when we prepare these presentations, the recommended needs to match up with what's in the report. But the other reason that I did not propose funding the full amount is in the facade grant and in the streetscape grant and also this building up bit grant. Well, let me start with facade and streetscape. Both those policies need to be rewritten if we're going to increase the match and increase the amount. The building up bit grant, to address one of the concerns that you've got, that needs to be written as well. And so I did not want to lock us into a higher amount until you all had the opportunity to have to develop the policy. If we need to, we can upgrade it at that time. We can also take funds from another place to fund this up. But there was another reason with these in particular that we've got to write, in two cases, we've got to update a policy, and in another case, we've got to write a policy. And we don't know that yet.
I fully understand requesting and what the final approval or your recommendation would be. I get that. I just don't think we should have to root through here to find it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's clear to me.
Thank you.
Was there any other questions regarding any of the items that we're requesting funding either for this year or in future years? Okay. Thank you.
I just want to know.
Good evening, guys, Mayor, members of the board. Tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about the stormwater program, but we wanted to take the opportunity with a couple new commissioners to kind of explain our stormwater program. It's sometimes the forgotten utility. We spend so much time on water, sewer, some of the things we see every day, we kind of forget stormwater. It's, you know, it's not the pretty one, it's not the sexy one, it's the one that's kind of out of sight and out of mind. So we want to talk about the things in our stormwater program and then kind of roll that into a little bit of, you know, some of our CIP requests and items and stuff forward. You may recall our stormwater program logo and stuff is not here, but you'll see as we go through it is Mr. Drip, and only rain to drain is our motto. We are currently having NPDES permit or MS4 requirements from the federal government. We got a permit in 2012, and what that permit basically says we need to do is form a stormwater management program, implement a comprehensive stormwater management plan, document activities, report annually, and obtain a new permit every 5 years. We did receive a permit in 2012. We renewed it in 2017, and we got a new renewal coming up in 2022. A part of that permit basically says we need to incorporate the 6 minimum control areas. And I'll make an argument in the next slide here. There's actually 7 of those requirements. The first of the 6 requirements is public education and outreach. This is a piece that our Mr. Drip kind of is our forefront for that. We reach out, we try to talk to different businesses and schools, and we'll get into a little more of each one of these breakdowns. One thing I do want to remind you, your stormwater management program is a combination of your public works staff and Wake County. We have a contract with them for an interlocal agreement, and they'll be completing a couple items, and we'll talk about those as we get to them. Next phase is public involvement and participation. We have illicit discharge and elimination program, construction site runoff controls, post-construction runoff controls. 4 and 5 are part of your contract with Wake County to administer. And then number 6 is your pollution prevention and good housekeeping for municipal operations. And I kind of call it rule number 7 is it's kind of unwritten, but it's very, very important. It's kind of like OSHA. If you didn't document it, you didn't do it. So document, document, document. You'll see that's a reoccurring theme as we go through tonight. In public education, we accomplish it in several matters. We are part of the Triangle J Council of Governments Clean Water Education Partnership. That is a partnership of 39 local government members, and we pay a fee based on population. And they do radio ads. They do, if you go to the movies, a lot of times you'll see them at the beginning of a movie. They do some TV ads and stuff. Public education is also our street sweeper. We were recognized early in 2013 by several national magazines by having a wrap on our vehicles, because as that vehicle rides down the road, it is promoting those things of stormwater, you know, traveling at a speed of 2 to 5 miles an hour. We also do some public events. You see a picture here of Mr. Rose on the right at our National Night Out. It got moved inside, and he's there sharing the Enviroscape. We've also tried to do stuff through water bill stuffers. I made multiple presentations over the years to the Rotary Club and the Lions Club to have to meet our public education requirements of our federal permit. One of the big involvements is public involvement. Here we got a picture of us doing some working with the Rotary Club and our staff. Here recently, the Litter Sweep program has come back on strong, which is a great item to help us with our stormwater permit, plus make our community look much cleaner and more vibrant. So that's a win-win from a stormwater and a cleanness perspective. So hopefully the momentum that we are starting to experience with that will continue. The next picture you see to the right there is a Orange Day that we've done some storm drain stenciling with GSK staff members. And basically, we stenciled on front of the drain that the drain runs straight to the creek. It reminds people that stormwater is not treated like wastewater. It is basically a direct connection to your nearby creeks, lakes, and streams. The next piece of our stormwater program is the illicit discharge and detection program, and it comes in various different forms. It's for us responding to our sewer overflow and blocking up, like you see in the first picture there, to make sure that sewer, before the client can get back out and unclog that, no, it does not run into our stormwater system. We assisted the fire department on a vehicle wreck on Rendell Avenue. Here's where we put some what we call pigs in place to try to stop that water from getting in the storm drain. Next one is where we found this after the fact, that we try to educate residents and businesses that not to wash their paint out in the catch basin. It drains to the stormwater system. And then the last piece here, over the years, we did find a couple illegal taps to the stormwater system. We found a sink and a dishwasher tapped directly into our stormwater system. Clearly, we worked with that property owner, educated them, got that dishwater sink and dishwasher tied back into the potable sewer system and abandoned that tap there. So the program comes in many different facets. We try to train our employees as we are collecting yard waste or leaves or out and about. If you see something that doesn't look right, it's probably not right. If you see foam bubbling up in the ditch, it's probably a dishwasher or a wash machine discharging, and that's not permitted as part of our program. The next piece of our stormwater program is construction site runoff. This is the part I talked about that is administered by Wake County. The picture there on the left is our interlocal agreement that we entered in 2012. And it basically talks about they handle our sediment ponds, our erosion control, our post-construction BMP conversion from that sediment pond, annual maintenance of those things. They keep that up. And then they also do our erosion control for our town. I did want to show this project because when the town goes out, this is our Greenway project there on at Weaver's Pond. When the town goes out, we cannot permit with the county. We have to go straight to the state. So that project has a state permit, but it's following the same kind of guidelines our local program has. One of the biggest pieces of our stormwater management program is good housekeeping for municipal operations. We have to require to keep a comprehensive map where all our storm drainage system is. We have currently, and we'll talk a little bit more later, 17.39 miles of pipe. So you've got an overall comprehensive map on the left, and then we get down into the street level mapping with each catch basin. Each catch basin is numbered. We also have data on the inverts and elevations. So we are able to provide new developments with that information, or we can use it from redesign for some of our infrastructure. In that infrastructure piece, we have 1,045 individual structures, which could be drop inlets, catch basins, flared-in sections, splitter boxes, you name it. So over 1,000 structures in our system. Another part of our Good Housekeeping program is our maintaining inventories of all our materials and stuff, of our fertilizers, of our pesticides. Every time there's a fertilizer applied or pesticide, it needs to be documented. You need to follow the labels or the instructions. Even some of the contracted services we have out with, for like lawn care here at the municipal complex, our contractor is required to send us a copy of his application of what fertilizer or pesticide he sprays each time. So we are aware of what's going on at any given time. Clearly, we're going to make sure they're licensed and that their certifications are current. We also have to maintain those same things for our staff. Keep a log of materials. They got to be stored in safe cabinets and stuff. Another big piece of our housekeeping is we have to have a spill response plan. And we have to have annual training on that. Our staff does annual training on that to recognize what a spill is, how to contain a spill. Maybe it's to put up some straw bales and to stop it from going to catch basin, and maybe it's plug in the sewer storm drainage line and vacuum that contaminant out. We also need to know where our trouble spots are, where flash flooding potentially happens, so we know how to treat those in events. We need to make sure our facilities are in good working order. We walk around that our tractors, our equipment, our stuff are not leaking and running into catch basins or inlets. We also, because we have a fueling station, we have an industrial permit for that, that we have to do runoff samples and stuff for to make sure there's no contaminants. And even a little something as simple as pet waste stations. They do a long ways to eliminating that pet waste that could be discharged and from a rain event into our stormwater system. And of course, we got to try to keep pollutants out. We do that by street sweeping collection. Our 4-year average is about 368 cubic yards of debris. A big part of our stormwater operations is also the yard waste and leaf collecting that debris before it gets into our storm drainage system. We also are responsible for line cleaning and stuff. We have a goal of cleaning our lines, 10% of our lines each year. which is about 9,100 linear feet. Here you see a contractor we brought in to help clean us with that. We also, as we go through the system and do inspection, we try to inspect 10% of our infrastructure annually. We have to make repairs. Here's a repair that some of our guys did on East Vance Street to bring that in compliance. We have 2 SEMs or BMPs, basically stormwater ponds. One is at Yates Place and one is at our community center. They have to be annually inspected to make sure they're performing as they have been originally designed. We also, as part of our program, have some stormwater outfalls and ditch maintenance to do. Here you see where we have, over time, sediment has built up the ditch, not allowing to have positive drainage. Our crews have come in there, dug that out, stabilized it, and matted it. How are we doing? How are we doing in our stormwater? Here is a couple graphs that talk about our sweeping programs. Just a reminder, our sweeping goals are to sweep downtown weekly. We also try to sweep Gannon, Arundel, and Shepherd School Road twice a month, being our main collector streets, and then residential once a month. Couple takeaways from that graph there. You can see over time that less and less time is coming available for street sweeping activities. That's a direct contributor to growth. Without the additional people and the additional miles that we keep adding in the storm drainage system, we're able to accomplish less. Another stormwater stat for inspections, like we said, our goal is to inspect 10% annually. Our majority of our stormwater work is done between January and March. In last year's budget and even this year's budget, Joe has tried to move some of our services from mowing and all to give us more and more time to accomplish these things. A couple of things that jump out where you see drops down to basically zero. Little River Park, that was the year that we spent our time working at Little River Park after the flooding down there, trying to revitalize that park. And then the tornado in 2020. That tornado happened in May, but it continued throughout the year. And we had to keep our yard waste and leaf services bumped up, so we were unable to meet any of our inspection goals. But as you can see there, each year inspections are growing and growing each year. And we've done a pretty good job. We've met 8 out of 10 years our goal of our stormwater inspections. Another stat that we look at, and then when we get audited, will be looked at, is our line cleaning. The red line here shows the miles of pipe that are expected to be cleaned each year, which is 9,100 feet. This year, you see a tremendous bump in that line cleaning piece. We were able to, and we appreciate the extra funding that was generated from $17,000 to $32,000 to assist with contract cleaning. One of the things also I want to keep in mind, when we send a contractor out to do cleaning, we send him to the worst spots. So a lot of times we don't make linear footage, but we do a really good job of getting the sediment, and so getting the sediment out of the system. So we don't send them to the areas that are clean just to meet our goals. We send them to areas that are causing us problems and causing backups. And in the past years, we've never been able to get to some of the other sections, but this year we were fortunate to get there. But that statistic to me is a little bit skewed because we put them in the worst spots, and we just don't try to make linear footage just to comply with the permit. We try to have a effective system. Couple little stats about our infrastructure system. Like I mentioned earlier, there's 17 miles of stormwater system. That's like traveling from downtown Zebulon to downtown Wake Forest. That's a long ways, guys. There's a lot of infrastructure, and a lot of times it is the forgotten piece of infrastructure. We try to sweep about 60 miles a monthly. We have over 28 miles of streets in town, and if each mile of street is 2 ways, and so basically you're sweeping 60 miles just to get through the town once a year. We have various types of pipe material, from reinforced concrete, corrugated metal pipe, high-density polyethylene, and terracotta. Terracotta is one of the ones we're seeing a lot of problems start with because of its age. And we have some various pipe sizes from 15 inches to 72 inches pipe. So we got a wide variety of infrastructure in our system. Let's talk a little bit about our upcoming audit that is scheduled for calendar year 22. I know there's 3 types of citations that you can get. Notice of compliance, got all my ducks in a row. Notice of deficiency, got a little bit of work to do, so that's the way to work. And then notice of violation, which we got some areas of it need improvement. Just want to note, 75% of all MS4 permittees are getting a notice of violation. The top three things that we're seeing in compliance deficiencies are lack of documentation. You think of that rule number 7, I said, document, document, document. Like you say, if you can't prove it, it didn't happen. Incomplete mapping. All your outfalls should be mapped. We're in pretty good shape for that. Clearly, I would think in documentation, we could always do some improvements, but our mapping program is in pretty good shape. And then having a reactive illicit discharge program. They're requiring municipalities to be proactive in that. Clearly, that's an area that I will tell you we need improvement. A lot of times we are reactive and not as proactive as we need to be. A couple of things that were submitted as part of the operating budget request. We did ask for some personnel to address the increase of from 9.6 miles to 17 miles in 2021. Unfortunately, due to the limitations of the budget, we were not able to. It's not in your recommended budget. We also asked it for some stormwater grant applications. Stormwater is, when you go out and look for water and sewer or reclaimed water, there's a lot of grant programs out there that can help you with that infrastructure. There's very little programs out there to help with stormwater, but the BRIC program is one that potentially could be recognized in the future, but they're very limited. And then one of the things that Joe is recommending in this year's budget is we're asking for an additional $1.50 per linear foot as a development fee for new infrastructure to assist with our mapping program and our software database to help us with our reporting and tracking. Right now, last year we added over 20,000 linear feet of new storm drainage lines. And one of the programs we're going to talk about in the capital request here, this $1.50 will help us meet some of our goals in our MS4 permit. One of the items that Joe has recommended in this budget, and we appreciate, is we have a condition assessment. We talked about, we've seen a significant amount of growth over the last several years, but 9.6 miles, which is an estimate, is in your older core section of your town. It's not in the Weaver's Pond. It's not in the Autumn Lakes. It's not in the Tarrant Meadows. We've got some areas that are older than 50 years that we need to take a look at. And a lot of those areas have this pipe that's the terracotta that's less 50 to 60 years old. And a lot of that was installed in the 60s. Well, it's 60 years old. We're starting to see that deterioration of that infrastructure. So we have identified about 11 locations that we would like to have an engineer come in and do an assessment to camera, do a condition assessment, look at what kind of repairs can be made, if the line can be rerouted, and very similar to your street program, rate these areas that are in your core area of your business, of your Zebulon area, that which areas need to be repaired and replaced sooner, so we can develop a capital improvements list. Just kind of cross these off, maybe 1 or 2 at a year, depending on the cost. One of the items that also is recommended in this year's budget, this project is very similar to the one we just completed this past year on West Vance Street. We have East Vance Street drainage improvements. There's a 24-inch diameter terracotta pipe. I am personally aware of 3 spot repairs in the last 10 years. When we cambered this pipe last year, it was starting to show sags. The pipe is becoming disjointed in other locations that haven't been repaired, and it's cracked. We had actually wanted to pave Vance Street last year, but due to the condition assessment, we passed on Vance Street till we can make these repairs. And so so this year, the cost associated with this project is $110,000. Construction is estimated at $91,000. The other item that we've recommended in this year's budget is to help us with our audit. We talked about in 22 that we're going to get an audit from the state. We want to get out in front of that audit and try to be proactive and look at some of our strengths, look at our weaknesses, pull our documents together. Our goal is to not receive a notice of deficiency, but to get a positive review. We wanted to give us some time to correct some deficiencies in our inspections, update SOPs, training, anything that needs to be done before the audit actually comes. And we hopefully the consultant is going to provide us with some help updated and new data, updated and new forms, excuse me. And it also prepares for audit. The audit is going to be a lot more comprehensive than the ones in the past. Here's one of the ones we talked about, the $1.50 additional linear foot stormwater mapping fee. Our stormwater program right now is very manual. It is visual manual and logs and data. Everything has to be done by hand. Pictures that our staff take have to be sent in and then uploaded. We have to create to-do lists. We wanted to invest in some software and training to help staff to incorporate this into a web-based program that does all this for us. We can use our iPads to document the condition, write a work order if something needs to be done. If we're doing an inspection and a catch basin is missing a brick or the bottom's missing, we can take a picture of that, import that into the software, and it'll generate the reports. It'll also, all the graphs you saw tonight, we're manually doing these graphs and keeping up with the linear footage of line cleaning to give you those graphs. This will help document those reports and make it a lot more efficient for us. And it's also to keep up with our mapping. As we said, last year we added 20,000 linear feet of new pipe. So the goal of this project at $29,000 is to improve our efficiency, effectiveness of our reporting, and move away from a manual process. Each year we try to stick in our budget request. This item is not funded, but just to be clear, is a program that looks at environmental or green projects. This is a piece that we looked at with one of our consultants that potentially would help make our brick grant more attractive. It is basically off our North Arundel Avenue West Sycamore project, diverting that water instead of just dumping it into a creek, dump it into a wetland option, and basically to, improve the treatment of that water before it is discharged into the creek. It would basically redirect the stormwater to East Glen Street, use a lot that we have, require a lot, and build a artificial wetland. So basically try to take a area that is undeveloped and then turn it into an asset. The estimated cost for the design of this feature is $75,000, and construction cost estimate is $150,000. At this time, this project is not recommended, but we did want to share that we are looking at green and other opportunities. That's a lot about our program and some of the programs we have. I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
You had mentioned that we have to contract out to get photographic inspections.
We contract out right now to do some line cleaning and vacuuming services. We are currently doing the inspections for our infrastructure, and our guys are taking those pictures and stuff.
Do we have the capability to go out and photograph pipes or see what's happening in certain areas?
No, sir. We do not have camera equipment to inspect the storm drainage system. So like Vance Street, for example, last year, we had some concerns due to our history before we looked to pave it. We brought a company come in and cameraed it with a camera that actually can look at it 360 degrees and give us that data. Based off that data, we recommended not paving that. That is one of the services we do try to contract out because we do not have the equipment.
Is it cheaper?
Yes, sir. At this time, we're not doing enough of cameraing work to justify us owning a camera system.
Excuse me, go ahead, Glenn.
I guess this is just another comment. I sometimes hear complaints about, street conditions, and I think if the public some kind of way could be more informed that one of the reasons the street is not being paved is because of the deteriorating pipes, and it would make sense to pave a street and then you have to dig it back up and repair the pipes, but I don't think the public is aware enough of that situation.
We always can do a better job of educating our public on those pieces, but you're exactly correct. There's a lot of factors that go in when we decide which streets to pave and when not to. Clearly, like last year's example, we wanted to pave East Vance Street. It's much needed. It's one of our lowest rated streets. This year, you'll see it recommended in our paving project. But because we're making repairs to the storm drains, we feel comfortable that we can go ahead and make the repairs to paving.
That was one of the streets that I received a complaint about, was Vance.
Yeah. Mhm. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Mine is more of a curiosity question.
Yes, sir.
I realize that we're no longer responsible for the sewer lines, but we used to run cameras in there for I&I. Do you use the same camera in stormwater as you do? I mean, it's not a different size or?
The only thing you would change on is the wheel diameter size and all to crawl up over more sediment. You're gonna find a little more sediment and debris in stormwater than you would in wastewater, but the camera works on the same types of function. If we had a camera in our water and sewer days, I would just change the wheels out and accomplish the same task.
Okay, I just, like I said, it was a curiosity thing, I didn't know.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? And I apologize, I know stormwater is boring. It's not pretty, you know, sexy, but it's critical. And,
Oh,
so,
it gives you something to play in when it rains.
yes, sir, there are some I can walk in, we have played in them. And, thank you, guys.
All right.
Okay, in addition to providing you details of what's in the budget, another goal that we have in these work sessions is to familiarize yourself with how to use this very thick document that's in front of you. So this is the presentation on the budget and the fee schedule is not only to give you more detail, but to give you a little bit more functionality with the document. So if you would turn to the tab D that says Schedules, I'm going to walk you through and highlight some of the changes, the proposed changes to the fee schedule. I'm only going to highlight some of the ones that are highlighted in yellow because they represent a substantial change. Anywhere you see a fee that's changed to yellow, it represents a change. If it's not highlighted, it's consistent with what you adopted last year.
Joe, excuse me, where'd you say?
Section D, it's titled Schedules.
D as in dog?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's it. All right. I was in there today, but I couldn't remember. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the first fee that I was going to highlight is on spreadsheet D1. It is the residential garbage rate. We are proposing to increase that rate by $3 to fund the yard waste service that we provide. Now, there's a couple of details to note. Ideally, I would love to break this out as a separate charge, so we would be transparent with your citizens and have a residential garbage rate fee, and then also have a yard waste fee. But the city of Raleigh charges us a billing for each line item that we put. So I'm trying to save us some money, but I wanted to be transparent and say, the residential garbage rate, what we're proposing here, is going up $3, not as a reflection of increase of garbage services or recycling services, but the yard waste fee. So that's the $3, that's the what. The why is that piece of equipment that you see right there. So you have heard me talk about in the fleet that we have what I'll call low-volume vehicles. We got mid-volume vehicles, and we got high-volume vehicles. The high-volume vehicles are things that are typically used by our fire department, these types of vehicles that last 15 to 30 years. Our low-volume vehicles are things that typically our police department uses, so things that have a useful life of around 5 years. This middle range, though, we don't really have a good funding stream for them. And so one of the reasons that we're proposing this $3 fee is so that we can finance very expensive equipment like this. If we were to buy that piece of equipment with cash, I think we're looking at $250,000. So that is the why, is to develop a funding stream for capital expenses, but also yet another way for us to stay on top of our stormwater maintenance. Yes.
Related question, we currently give the mulch free. Have we ever considered selling that, either to citizens or to a commercial application?
I don't believe we have, but we can look into that. We can, do you have an answer?
Yes.
All right, let's answer when we can.
Mr. Laws, that's a very good question. We have what's called a Class 1 permit with the state of North Carolina for our yard waste facility. That is a permit, it basically is no cost of renewal. And the Class 1 permit requires we are not allowed to sell that mulch. We would have to step up our permitting requirements, our monitoring requirements to get a Class 2 permit. And we just do not feel like that is cost effective for what we could get on return for the mulch. No.
Okay, I'm glad you looked into it.
This is just a comment. I know there's been some discussion about, our town probably picks up more stuff than any other town that I know of. I live in the inner city and I got trees, I got leaves, I got yard waste, probably got more than some of these newer subdivisions that's coming on that don't even have trees. It's just something to think about as we keep growing and growing. Are all of our citizens getting equal as far as the pickup is concerned?
So what you're saying is that the new developments really are not going to have yard waste, so
Right.
they shouldn't be charged.
Well, it's just
That's just a thought.
just a
I
thought.
get it.
Just a
I
thought.
understand
I
that.
mean, they
I
don't
just
have
want to be
to.
clear what you were,
Yeah, yeah,
trying to say.
yeah. That's basically.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jeff.
Okay, the next fee that I was going to highlight, you can find that on sheet D3. And it's titled Engineering Review Fees. Struggling here with.
Joe, I don't have D3.
E3?
E3? E?
No, D.
D as in
D.
dog.
D.
Mine
Delta.
starts on D7.
He said D3.
Well,
A little strange there.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, anyone else missing a D3?
I told Stacy you were trying to hide the beekeeping fee.
That's it, that's it. You have found me out.
What?
Yes, we were trying to keep that on the down low.
so moved.
Yeah. All right, so here's the why with this. We have both a volume and a technical capability issue that we're coming across when it comes to reviewing all these site plans. So the picture that you see in front of you, that's just a snapshot of some of the things that our staff is dealing with. So that bottom picture, that shows you things like vertical, horizontal separation of storm pipes. It shows you the curve rate of the roadway. So we're looking at a lot of things, and we've got the capability to do some of those things in-house. It's just we're being overloaded with volume. The things that we do not have the capability in-house to do is do things like traffic impact analysis, or in some cases, some of these stormwater issues are more complex than what we typically review. So what this fee is a fee that would be charged to a developer and would be collected at when the plat is recorded. So if we had to utilize, if we had to contract an engineer, we would charge the developer the $130 per hour to cover that cost. So that's what that fee is.
What is the average cost of the engineer itself? I realize it's got to be a little bit less than that.
I think that's you know, I've been removed, but I think that's a
You're
good
thinking it's a
estimate.
break even?
Yeah. Yep.
I figured our staff had some time in it as well. Okay.
All right, this one is going to be open-ended. This is really a placeholder. This will be determined as you all adopt your Parks and Rec master plan, but we wanted to at least get it on the fee schedule so people are aware of it and that we have it as a placeholder. So this is also on D3. It's just called Recreation Impact Fee. We don't have a fee associated with it. It's going to be dependent upon the adoption of the Parks and Recreation master plan. We just want to keep everyone in the know. All right, Chris mentioned this a little bit. This is page D4. So current, and by the way, this is not a storm drain, but it illustrates the point well. This is a water line. Is this on Westley? Vance, okay. So the point of the story is you never know what's underground until you dig it up and then you find, oh, well, that's there. So when it comes to stormwater, especially with how quickly we are growing, we need to survey and map the stormwater before it gets covered up. And right now, we're putting that responsibility on developers, and they're doing that, but the problem is we're getting mix and match of different formats that are delivered to us. The timing is inconsistent because they're on different phases, and so we never have a consistent understanding of what's in the ground, when it's in the ground, and all of it is hard copies. And so what we are proposing here is that we take over those responsibilities. We charge the developers $1.50 per linear foot, and then we collectively go out and survey mass bunches of this so we have consistent data, our timing is consistent, and we get it electronically. And this is also funding that stormwater asset mapping software that Chris mentioned. So that's what that fee is related to.
Any idea what the annual revenue would be? Any projections?
From this?
Yeah.
It's really development driven. So, I mean, we could run a calculation based upon what we have seen to date this year, but that's just going to fluctuate. All right. We're proposing something a little bit different this year. If you turn to page D7, we have a sliding scale of what we offer to participants who participate in our athletic and recreation programs, or in our non-athletic and camp programs. So there might be some community needs where we might want to offer flexibility for someone who might not be able to afford to allow them to come in, or we might just for a community because you all have a particular goal that you're trying to achieve that we're driving the cost down. So in this particular item, what we're referring to, and I'm not sure now that you all have this, but let me know if you don't. The very back part of the schedule fee is a recreation cost recovery policy. So when you all adopt the budget, we're asking you to not only adopt this fee schedule, but we're asking you to adopt the recreation cost recovery policy. So this is really a heads up to show you how that fee is calculated, but this is also a heads up to give you time to look over this policy. And I think those were the, no, we got a few more. I'm sorry, if you got a question, just let me know. All right, the fee in lieu, and I think this is the last one. When there are times when we recommend that you all not have the developer put in the infrastructure and do a payment in lieu for us to possibly add it to a town project, this is the rate that we let the development community know that they're responsible for. So you see a lot of yellow there. That yellow is really just a reflection of keeping up with inflation. So you'll see that updated every year.
What page are we
What
on?
page?
I'm sorry, I didn't tell you, D11.
D11.
And that concludes our presentations, my presentation on fee schedule and our presentations. If you would like to open it up for public input, I don't know that anyone's here, though.
Anybody have any questions? I don't see any public here, but I will call for public comment, just so that we follow procedure. Okay,
Beyond that, you all have asked some questions that we'll circle back with you on. The 50 amp is an example that we'll circle back and provide you some information on that. Some of the things, like Commissioner Loud's question on the mulch, we were able to answer tonight. Are there any questions that we can try to answer tonight or bring back prepared to answer at your second work session?
What are we going to be reviewing at the second work session?
Excuse me?
What's going to be the topics that we are going to be discussing at the second work session?
Somebody? Property management. So the things like, so what you'll want to do is you'll want to take a look. These will be primarily in your capital budget. So you'll want to be previewing tab E, which is the recommended capital improvement plan. And you're going to want to focus on you're going to want to thank you. You're going to want to focus on page E6. That's going to be the topics or the specific projects that we talk about on property management. We will also be talking about walkability, so where you'll want to focus there is staying in the same section. You'll want to look at page E2 under the Transportation Fund, specifically under Greenway bicycles and pedestrians. For details of all those, you'll find the details for those in the requested CIP section. So again, the requested CIP has everything listed. The ones we'll be talking about are the only ones that are listed in this spreadsheet. And then Bobby is going to provide you an overview on how much general fund balance we're recommending you all use, and what does that look like in comparison with your internal policy on general fund balance percentage, and how that does or does not affect your bond rating. So those are going to be the topics for next time. In addition, we'll have another public input opportunity. In addition, we'll have another questions, comments, and request opportunity.
So will we still have this rounded off number, or is that going to be cleared up?
Yeah, our goal is to clear that up. Is there any other
okay,
questions?
other comments or questions? All right, Joe, you got a manager's report?
It's real quick. I was just going to share with you all, Michael and I were able to sit in on Wake County Historic Preservation Commission regarding the Zebulon Historic District. They had what I thought was a very productive meeting. They were very complimentary of the meeting that you all held, complimentary about the amount of public engagement. They are going to form a subcommittee to offer a recommendation. Their goal is to bring you back a recommendation by your June 7th meeting. So I'm just keeping you all up to date on that. And that concludes my report.
Okay. The motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We're adjourned. Gotta have that second.